The next thing we have down here is receipt setup. Now, there's two areas where you can create your receipt headers and footers in the system. The first one, and the most logical one, is this section right here under General Setup, because whatever you set within here will apply to all stations on the system. However, you can override this programming on a per station basis by going into Station Setup, because the last tab we have here is Receipt Setup, and on here I can select on this and I can program the header and footer on a per station basis. The time you would want to do this is when you're working, let's say, with multiple revenue centers, where one place is called Family Restaurant and the next one is called Joe's Discotheque or something like that. In which case you're working with multiple revenue centers and you want different headers, for example, for these places. But they're all working on the same POS system. So that would be the one time that you would want to do this. But other than that, don't use this one. Use the one in General Setup. The reason for this as well is that if I add on additional stations later on, they will all inherit this particular header. Unless, of course, you decide to override that when you're setting up each one of those. Now, it's important as well that you do actually set up this stuff, because if you don't, then it's going to say your bar and grill or something like that, and some bogus address that we put in by default on the system. So that if you print it off a check, they'll look and, hey, that's not our restaurant, that's the generic one. You know, so you do need to make sure that you go in and actually program this. So very important, make sure you do it. Now, along with this, we have basically our text that shows up in here. Let's say, for example, PixelPoint Restaurant is what I've got sitting on this one here. And on this, I have some symbols off to the left-hand side. So let's just take a look at what we've got here. The little roof icon, that's referred to as a circumflex. And from with here, we have, I think that's what it's called. We have all these different symbols for it. So we have the W for wide print, okay? So when you're working with your printers, if you want it to show up in a larger font, a wide print, then you can use the W for that. Your regular default font sizing for that will show up in a normal print. R for red print. So if you're working with ribbon printers, for example, black and red, then if you want to show up with a red text, then you can put in the R before that, such as here, daily specials. There's the R for red, W for wide, and we have C here, which is for center on the line as well. So it will center it within your 40-column print. Next we have the G, which is for print logo. Now print logo is basically the image that you have uploaded into your printer. If it's a nice logo of the establishment or a picture of the place or whatever it happens to be, and your printer has that graphic capability to print off that given image, then you can use the circumflex G for that. Now, where you would find that particular logo, it comes back here into Network Printer Setup. Oh, no, not Network Printer Setup. Into printer code setup. And on here we have this thing that says print logo, and in here you put in whatever the print string would be for that given printer, and that would be indicated within the manual for that printer, and you would put in that code. And with that in there, then you can go back into this, and within here we can put in, for example, there in G. Okay. And that's all you would do when you're applying that in there as well. Do not try to center it, because that'll just skew it all over the place. Make sure it's left justified, and don't try to do any other stuff. Just put in the circumflex G, boom, you're ready to go with that. We also have one O for order number. So if I put in that, what it's going to do is take the last 3 digits of the transaction number and put them in a large font and put that right within the header as well. So this is really good for like a drive-in type place where now serving order number 123, because you would see the 123 showing up within there, because 123 is the last 3 digits of the transaction, and the order number kind of pulls from that. Okay, so that's what that applies to. And then we also have B as well for barcode. Okay, transaction barcode. It'll take the transaction number and convert that into a barcode layout if your printer has that capability as well. Just bear that in mind. in which case then it will show that up on the header. So now when you print off the receipt, for example, and then you have to take your receipt, let's say, to a cashier. Well, the cashier can look up your transaction somehow, using the information on the system, or if it's a really busy place, all they need to do is just scan the barcode that prints off on the header, and from there they retrieve your check and they can process you that way. So that's all the little bells and whistles that you can toss into that. The footer obviously shows up at the bottom of the check. Header shows up at the top of the check. We also have layout as well. If there's any form of custom layout that you need to provide on your receipt that you may want to include, like some member information or a secondary tip line or whatever it happens to be like that, then you can actually go in and do some very custom programming on that. We have some examples of that within the MyPower website, I believe, and within there, you can pop in all this kind of stuff. And also, you will find actually new variables as they're introduced within each subsequent version as well. So, like if you're checking, the new things that have come out for version 10, new things that came out for version 11, and so on, you would find one area in there of print variables. In which case, then we've got some new fields that we've added in that you can apply within these screens as well, and you can customize your layout that way. And then finally, we have sort. Within here, when I want to print off my check or my receipt, how do I want the contents of the check sorted? So within here, depending on my particular establishment, I may say, for example, by course and then by seat. So appetizer, seat 1, 2, 3, main course 1, 2, 3, dessert 1, 2, 3. If I want my receipts to reflect that particular order, then I can do it that way. It's the same sorting function is what we do with our remote prints, which was way back when I was talking about setting up network printing. You can do that with your receipts as well, where you can adjust the order of these things, in this case group them by summary group, by product print priority, so these items first, these items second, or by course, appetizer, main course, dessert, or by seating position, seat 1, 2, and 3, and you can use any combinations of these things as well.